is a place I'm welcomed in. It's the mountains high, spread across a valley, green and wide. As morning filters through the trees, baking in the day, reveals the canyon's magic deep inside. The sleepy sunrise brings the joy inside.
When and where were you born?
Outside Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, in 1955.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about your early life?
I had a pretty amazing childhood because I grew up on a large estate that my grandfather owned, and it was a really wonderful place to be a kid because there were formal gardens and huge trees to climb and mazes to wander through. And my next door neighbor was my great aunt Peg, who was a really interesting self-taught botanist. So she had fantastic gardens, and so we got to play in the gardens. Growing up on the estate was just, it provided all kinds of opportunities for what we would now call self-directed play in the natural world. But of course, back then, nobody talked about it like that. It was just go outside and play and show up at dinner when you're called. And I think that it was great for me to be able to have that opportunity to just go out and explore and climb trees and do whatever and sit and read or watch things. It was a pretty unstructured time, and that doesn't happen that often, and it was safe, and there were lots of places to go and lots of things to do. So it was really fun. It was actually thanks to Jean and the other members of early residents of Topanga, Betty Doffner and Pearl Sloan, both of whom were Topanga fixtures from the 40s. They moved here. And both Betty and Pearl worked at the Resource Conservation District. And I would come out to Topanga and Betty and Pearl would say, "Oh, we got to find you a place in Topanga." I said, "Great, that sounds like a plan." One day Betty called me and said, "My friend is putting her house on the market, and maybe you should go look at it." So I was the first person to look at this particular house, and it was just the right fit. And Barbara and Charlie, who were the previous owners, were kind of thrilled to sell it to us. And you know, what a lovely way to be welcomed into a community, because they had a tea for us to introduce us to all the neighbors, and you know, gave us a book that had all the information about the house that they'd had. And you know, the house had been built in 1925. It was a little cabin kind of place, and it had been modified over time, and Charlie had taken the time to figure out who did what and when and that sort of thing. And so it was a lovely way to get welcomed into the community.
Interesting. Around what time was it that you moved here?
1987. Yeah. Topanga has been an amazing place to be, because it really, if you want to get involved, there's so many ways to do it. And so I've worn quite a few hats in Topanga. One hat that I still am wearing is my biologist hat, which has been great. The other hat was when Sean was at the elementary school. I was on the PTO at that time and helped do the emergency preparedness work for there. While I was hiking the creek one time, I actually had my son and a couple of his friends, and I'm looking and I'm thinking, God, those look like really big fish. I wonder what those fish are. And it turned out that they were southern steelhead trout, which were listed as a federally endangered species in 1997. I actually called the fish biologist specialist down at National Marine Fisheries one day. I said, "We have fish. You've got to come up here right now and see these fish, because nobody's going to believe me that these fish are here unless you come and say that, you know, Rosie's not hallucinating. These are real fish. And Anthony showed up, and he had on his khaki pants and his nice shoes and a nice button-down shirt, and I'm dragging him down into the creek, and he's really like, you know, Rosie, I just don't get this. And I said, just wait. And I hopped into the creek with another friend, Noel, and we had a net, and we kind of moved the net, and the next thing you know, there were 4 fish, each of them about so long, that swam out. And the next thing I know, Anthony, who is like the most calm, cool, collected individual, is jumping up and down on the side of the creek going, oh my gosh, those are really fish! And that was when we found that we had repopulated and recovered the southern steelhead trout in Topanga Creek. Development's been huge and increased tremendously. So we've gone from these little cabins like the one I live in that was built in 1925, for which this room is about the size of my entire first floor, we've gotten to experience the McMansionization of things, and there's a lot bigger development. When we first moved here, there was not one single street light at all. Now we have about a dozen street lights. When we first moved here, there were no traffic signals. The first traffic signal that was put in at the school was put in, and for the first 3 months, it was shot out every night. The people came and just shot out the light until we changed it so that it's a trigger only, so it's green all the time unless somebody's trying to get in or out of the school. But they put it in as a traditional traffic signal initially so that it had a timer on it, and every 4 or 5 minutes it would change. And people didn't like that at all, and they shot it out. The mountains haven't changed. The chaparral, the creek. I mean, it changes in response to the natural environment, but it's very much the pervasive setting. And all of us, whether to one degree or another, have to adapt to that because Mother Nature is not really paying attention to us. She's doing her own thing, and we have to be able to deal with whatever she sends our way. But when I go and hike, which I do pretty much every afternoon, one of the many trails around here, there's a lot that's the same. And the trees are still here, the critters are still here, our creek is still here. And one of the things that's remarkable is that Topanga is the 3rd largest watershed that drains into the Santa Monica Bay. It's the only watershed left in the entire Santa Monica Mountains that is still functioning naturally. We don't have nutrient problems, we don't have imported water, we don't have any dams. We have all of the 22 out of a possible 30 reptile and amphibian species that are found in the Santa Monica Mountains, we still have. That's the highest percentage of reptiles and amphibians of any other creek in the whole mountains. We have the only creek that has all 3 native fishes, happy and healthy. It's still a pretty intact and functional system, even though we have the influences of the human population, and the road and the utilities and the creek all share competing space within the narrow canyon. And trying to keep that all in balance has been tricky, but I think for the most part it's worked. And I certainly hope that it continues to work into the future, and I'm doing my darndest to make that so. I think libraries are an amazing community resource. They're a way to bring a community together, to provide a central place for people. And from what I can see, this library is getting a tremendous amount of use and is becoming already a vital part of the community, which is great. All the better.
Got the sunlight in my pocket, got the wind around my hair, like a picture in a locket, jeweled a memory to share. Got the twilight falling on me, through Topanga Sycamore, as the road leans up to meet me. Afternoon closes the door. Ever blessed to be here, living close to nature's core. Meadows melted into moonlight, I could never want for more. And I could never leave here, even death knows no demise, for heaven's captured in Topanga, this wondrous place, a paradise, this wondrous place, my paradise.